Perfect. Well, want to welcome everyone to our Workforce Go Partner Training Session 2. Appreciate everyone's time this morning and going through these training sessions with myself and team. Just as a little bit of housekeeping items as we go into each one of these training sessions, we are recording these and we will distribute the PowerPoints, the recorded webinar, and any documentation reviewed post our meeting today for any follow-up or questions or assistance on the content that we're covering. Also, just as a heads up, housekeeping item there, these are open meetings, meaning that lines are left unmuted to ask any questions. But while we're going through, if you do not have any questions or are not asking any questions, if I could ask personally that you go ahead and individually mute your lines just to avoid any background noise. And of course, the chat box is always up in front of us as well if you'd like to ask a question there as I'm going through anything. But please feel free at any point in time with anything that we're covering during our 30 minutes together today to ask any questions that you may have. So today, what we're going to be walking through together during our time is actually the essential opportunity steps that we need to go through when reviewing the Workforce Go HCM solution with opportunities and organizations out there. Now, we do not indicate or provide a detailed list of all steps that an organization should go through as part of your overview and review process with organization. But what you can see in front of you here are some guidelines of some steps that are very important to go through when opportunities are identified. And those steps are going to be the lead qualification, the discovery, the actual needs requirements of the organization, a solution overview, the solution quote and proposal, any negotiation conversations with them, ultimately driving to a close one. As a little bit of foreshadowing into our upcoming training sessions that we will have over the upcoming weeks. In our next training session on Thursday, we'll actually be going through solution quote and proposal. And what I mean by that is we'll actually be reviewing the pricing and how the pricing is configured and built for Workforce Go HCM based on the discovery, the requirements, and the solution that needs to be presented. And then after that meeting going into next week, we will actually be getting into the solution overview. We'll be showing you how to actually show and demo the Workforce Go HCM solution throughout the entire life cycle of recruitment, pre-hire, all the way to retirement. Today, though, during our time, we want to step back to the very beginning of our engagements with new opportunities and focus on really three key areas. And that's going to be our lead qualification, our discovery, and our needs requirement, which in my mind are probably some of the most important steps throughout the entire solution review process with an organization. This is what really builds your foundation of what the solution needs to be for them and the value of a solution to that organization to ultimately drive towards that win and mutual client success that we have there. Now, as we go into the lead qualification, discovery, and needs requirement, we need to keep in mind that Workforce Go HCM is a full human capital management suite, meaning that we do address the opportunity to manage the pre-hire all the way to retirement aspect for organizations out there. Again, attracting and retaining talent, engaging the workforce, and managing that entire life cycle. And even though Workforce Go HCM is one single unified platform throughout that life cycle, it does not mean it has to be an all or nothing solution for an organization. And that's very key to keep in mind when we're going through that qualification, discovery, and requirements phase. Organizations, a lot of time, especially when they're small business to just entering medium-sized business before they get to those larger employee counts, do not need the full value of a complete solution. So we need to make sure we're not over-positioning the solution in a lot of cases and concentrating on what their true requirements are and areas they may want to grow into the future. That's often a misstep that we find when engaging with opportunities is we're over-positioning the solution for an organization and trying to drive too much value rather than concentrating on their actual core requirements that they have out there. So to help with that today, Workforce Go is actually generated, and what we're going to go through during the rest of our time here is what we call a life cycle document. Here at Workforce Go, this is actually something that lives with our clients throughout their entire life cycle of being a client with Workforce Go. This will be something that as we move forward with this and as we incorporate and provide this to you, that we will require our partners, yourselves, to actually submit this information to us with your Workforce Go HCM orders. So we understand that the proper modules and solutions are being positioned with that, as well as the implementation services aligned with that as well. So again, I want to spend the majority of our time, and please, as you have questions as we go through this, please ask those so we can have full clarification. And also keep in mind that the life cycle document that we're going to go through today is a living agile document. It is something that can constantly have changes made to it to help you better position and have conversations with organizations there. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our life cycle document and bring that up in front of us. Now, one of the very first things I want to start off with going through this life cycle document is you will notice that it is in an Excel spreadsheet. And this Excel spreadsheet will be open to you for any manipulation and changes that you want to make. We want this to be your document, something that is tailored to you and how you want your processes and conversations to flow. Now, the very first thing I'm going to point out is we're starting on the qualification tab within this. These are items that should be part of our very beginning conversation with an organization before we ever talk about solutions with them, before we ever get into demonstrations or talking about feature functionality. We truly need to understand more about them and their organization and qualifying them as a very good true fit for our solution out there. Now, again, even before we get in that, you will notice this red box right within here. This is a very important box for us to understand, in that this document is meant to be a guideline for you. This is not meant to be a checklist for the client. This is not even something that we intend that you hand to the client directly and ask them to fill out. These are drivers or indicators of how you can have a conversation with the client and uncover a lot of this information. Now, that takes a lot of time and a lot of iteration of going through this several times and having those conversations several times before you build your own flow of how you do that. But keeping in mind that this is meant to be a conversation, it's meant to position you as a thought leader and truly wanting to understand their organization and their requirements, not handing them a document to complete. Now, starting on our lead qualification tab here, again, the purpose of this area is for us to truly understand what is driving their interest behind reviewing new solutions for human capital management. And you'll notice our very first question is here, what is their interest in reaching out to Workforce Go, or in your case, your organization, around solutions for payroll, HR, benefits, and all the various areas? What's driving this now for them, helping uncover what is the reasoning behind this? Is this an active project? Is this just feelers that they're putting out here? Is this an active project with a timeline, a budget, and those type of things around it? Or are they just gathering some preliminary information, helping you identify and weigh where is your time best spent with this opportunity out here? Is this something we want to just provide feature sheets and information for and nurture until it is an active project out there? Very importantly, we need to understand what are the systems and capabilities they're using today. Do they have something for payroll and HR? Is that a competitor that we constantly run into and we understand the challenges behind? Is it something we've never run into, or is it all manual processes today? This is really going to help you identify preliminarily where some of their pains may be at, and competitively how to position throughout the remainder of the review process you're going through. Building upon some of that, you'll notice some additional questions in here. Not only what their interest in reaching out now is, but expanding into that more into What is their motivation for looking now? Is there something happening within their company? Are they going through an acquisition, a merger? Are they acquiring a huge employee base due to a big project they have coming on? What's the motivation behind looking out of this? And what are the likes and dislikes and challenges that they're incurring today? What are they looking to solve? Again, not focusing on our specific Workforce Go HCM solution, but just them today and what is their current status. And these are things that are going to drive through the remainder of the conversations. And then you'll just notice some notes area where you can start building in some general notes within here. So again, this is a document from a qualification perspective that is meant to guide your conversation that you have. You can have this up in front of you, typing directly into it. You can take handwritten notes and come back and fill this out. But this is meant to be very conversational with the organization. Now, within your organization as a partner, you may have different levels and roles of individuals that do these steps and processes through a review. And I want to use this lead qualification as an example of that. Sales development resources or representatives within an organization or lead qualifiers are typically individuals that may ask these questions. You may have a dedicated resource to that, or that may be your sales representatives or yourselves, individuals that do that. And that again goes into the purpose of this being a life cycle document that lives throughout each stage and process with the client during their entire life cycle with Workforce Go HCM. So whether this is a dedicated role that is completing that, whether this is part of just your standard process, this is an initial step that we need to go to understand what is the basis behind why we're having these conversations today. Now, building upon that lead qualification, then we go into the sales qualification. So now we're building upon not only why are we having these conversations right now, but how are we positioning, or how should we be positioning Workforce Go HCM to their organization itself? So again, building upon not just what is this project, but now who are you as an organization that we're speaking with? What is their company? What is their culture? What is the industry and background behind them? What are their priorities that they're working on internally today? Is this part of another project? Do they have other projects that are going to be taking their time that we need to understand and be working and aligning with? Their review process itself. So as we continue through our discussions and as we guide them through reviewing this solution, what is their decision-making process? Have they outlined that? Do they need assistance outlining that? I always love to ask this question of organizations, and when they go, well, we really haven't formalized that. Well, can I help you through that? We do this every day, all day. Can I give you a typical process, or can we together build a typical process and agreement that we're going to come into? Again, a little bit more regarding their current situation. You're going to notice as we go through these steps of this life cycle document, from qualifying to actual discovery and requirements, several of these questions may seem a little repetitive to each other. And the reason for that is because you're asking these at different stages, you can always get additional insight as part of that. So even though we ask them a little bit about how they're doing things today or what their current situation is, we're going to ask this again and expand a little bit upon that, within that. What makes up their entire evaluation process? What makes up the players involved in this process? So as we're doing demonstrations, do you have a dedicated payroll? Do you have a dedicated benefits administration? Is finance going to be part of this? Is the CFO, controller, CEO, are they part of this process as well? We need to understand who those players involved are. And again, making sure that we're driving to be in front of those decision makers that we want to be involved in. And does this have executive sponsorship? I know several of us, including myself, have engaged with opportunities where a payroll manager or an HR manager has reached out to look at something, but it's just something that they're doing on their own. They really don't have a true project or executive sponsorship or even buy-off to go through a purchasing process of a new solution. Not that that's a negative situation to be in. we can definitely help go down that path there. But again, it's about spending our time correctly at the right point and stage and understanding where this opportunity is at. And it's always a good area to ask what the competitive landscape is. Are you looking at other solutions? Are you currently considering keeping your existing solution? A great question to ask from a competitive landscape is, have you worked with other solutions before? And understanding their exposure to those. Did they like them? Did they not like them? What did they and did they not like about those solutions? And very importantly, and especially in human capital management and timeframes, is timeframes. And this really revolves around actual payroll in my mind. This is very key to positioning a solution. What are your timeframes for the process that we're going through? Do you have go lives in mind of when you need to be on a new solution? Because that helps us back into the remainder of the process and really drive things forward as we continue our review there. Budgetary and finance numbers are typically hard questions to ask and things that they not are always sure of, but something that we should always keep in mind. Ideally, do you have an expense in mind for the solution? Do you know what you're spending today? Is there certain return on investment you're looking to get from a solution about this? And how does your justification work internally? What is going to justify those decision makers signing off on this solution? Is it just your recommendation? Is there certain ROI you have to show with this? Are there certain process procedures, integrations, or things that need to be incorporated with this as well? And lastly, on this sales positioning area here, a very key question is, and something to keep complete transparency with a prospective organization is, what possible obstacles may cause this project to be delayed or just be taken off the table in completeness out there? Are there things that could come up that would halt you from being able to proceed forward with this? And how together can we work on those to avoid those type of obstacles for you and keep you successful out there? Now, once we get through these sales positionings, again, understanding a little bit more about their organization, now we want to get into the finite detail about their organization. And here, what's key about the organizational and system review is a lot of these details now start helping us build what is the solution we need to present. And more so, when we're putting together pricing, we have all the details we need in order to put together a quote around our proposed solution out there. So it's always good from an organizational aspect to understand what is their fiscal year end. Are there budgetary or year end reporting requirements that they're going to have to know from a spending perspective that we need to keep in mind? What is their employee counts? What does that look like from an hourly, a salary, a contractor, or other perspective? It's very important to understand not only the total number of individuals that they have, but what is the landscape of those individuals? There are a lot of opportunities we run into with WFGO HCM where they have seasonal, temporary, contract workforce individuals that do not need the full solution. Maybe they only need them for time and attendance. Maybe they're payroll only. They don't do anything with benefits. So it really makes you help understand what modules to position and how to position them and what the counts for each one of those modules are. How many company EINs do we have? What is the count of individuals by those EINs? What type of pay cycles are you working with? Do you have one? Do you have multiple? Just because you have one biweekly pay cycle, is that the same biweekly pay cycle for each one of your entities that you have? Are you paying current or in arrears for your organizations today? And it may vary by different workforce, but these are good things for us to know as we're going into that solution overview, so we can make sure we're hitting on those points and they understand that we're listening to them and understand who they are. And then what are the number of states, number of locals that we have in there? And a lot of that organizational review or overview, again, builds into the pricing that we have. Then we want to understand, what are their current systems? What are you currently doing for HR? What are you currently doing for payroll, recruiting, learning, performance? Very importantly, what are you doing from an accounting, a financial, and ERP standpoint? And are there other third-party systems that you have? Maybe things you've developed internally, or other service field manager systems. Anything else that we're going to have to talk to, integrate with, or take into consideration when we're building our solution. A lot of times when we get into HCM opportunities, all we think about is Workforce Go HCM, and not these other areas where we can bring benefit and communication within their organization out there. And from a history perspective, what are their current systems going to help them with from a historical review? Do we need to consider bringing more history into Workforce Go HCM? Is that something very important to them? Now, once we get through a lot of that information, now we can get into the finite details of really what is the solution we're going to build. And when I like going through these conversations, more of this is the true needs requirement area, not the discovery area. This is the needs requirement conversation. I like to walk through the life cycle of an employee. So regardless of the organization and what they've expressed to me thus far when going through these conversations, I like to start with the pre-hire all the way to retirement approach. So you want to ask about recruiting. Again, what are you doing from recruiting today if we have not already uncovered that? Is that working well? Is this something, even starting with the basic conversation of, is this something you want to be part of the new solution we're talking about? Yes, no, maybe, and then going into the information that's important for us to understand. Where are you finding candidates today? What is your volume of individuals you're working with? What is the process and workflow you go through today? Taking that right into the next phase of onboarding those individuals. So we've hired them. Great. Tell me about how you onboard individuals. Is that painful for you today? Is this something you want to be part of the new solution? And you can see by asking those questions, we can very quickly come in here and say, yes, no, this needs to be part of the solution that we're reviewing and proposing for them, and the details we need to ask that are important for those sections that we have there. How do you engage with your employees? Do you have an employee manager self-service environment? Do you have remote employees that need mobile capabilities? What's important for them? What are they asking you for every day that you're taking time to provide them? And then we've split this out into each one of those sections, people being HR. So now we can start going through our people management area, understanding their reporting requirements, their benefits and details, expanding into performance management, learning and talent activities, getting detailed into payroll that we have here. And you'll notice as these sections go, the questions and things really build out into the details that are important for us. So under payroll, you'll see things in here like number of checks, number of direct deposits. Do they do certified payroll? What are the earning types? What are the deduction types? How are they gathering time today? All the way into our time and labor management, which is probably our most extensive area because there can be so many different requirements around time and labor management. So we're asking, how are you gathering this information today? How do you want to gather this information today? Are you using clocks? What type of job shifts? Differentials? How are you engaging with employees? How are you engaging with managers? Do you do any scheduling? So again, this is meant to be guidelines of information that's very important to gather to understand what are their requirements, what do we need to be showing them in a solution, and what do we need to be pricing and configuring out for them. All the way into our last tab here, which is that custom tab. And this is more of a free form where we're just building, is there anything unique or custom that they said to us that we need to make sure we keep in mind? Something specific to their organization. These are things that are often overlooked because we concentrate on just what our features and capabilities are. And yes, we need to concentrate on that, but we need to understand what is important to them. So we need to make sure we're filling in these custom requirement areas that we have out there as well. Now, I very quickly went through that, and we're going to provide this to you, but a couple things that I want to make sure I reiterate aligned with this is that this is meant to be a guideline for you on information that is important and key to gather as part of that. It's meant to drive a conversation with the organization, not be a checklist or even a document that you give to the prospective organization, but really allow you to have a dialogue with them and understand what is important and where they're at today and what their requirements of a new solution are. Also, very importantly with this, keeping in mind that as we go through a life cycle document here and each one of these phases, understanding that we don't want to overdrive value of a solution. And I know that's a contradictory statement that some of us have heard based on things that we've done historically out there. But just because we review recruiting and we review what some goals and challenges and ideas they have around recruiting are, how important is that for them today? What is the pain and challenge around that? And is that truly something that's meant to be a part of this project aligned within there? Doing that with every phase and component that we have within that solution there. Okay, so again, we're going to provide this to you. This is going to be a great document for you to start utilizing in your practice and exercise. If you have a document like this you already use today, I encourage you to review that against what we have and keep that as a fluid, agile, changing document. But this document, or along the lines of this document, is something that Workforce Go is going to be required to be sent in with our Workforce Go HCM orders from your partner. So we truly understand what those requirements are behind the solution that's being ordered and the implementation that needs to be performed there. Okay. So we've got about 2 minutes left in our time there. Truly appreciate you guys allowing me to go through the value of that. Before I open up for any questions that we may have there, just want to remind everyone in our next session on Thursday, we're actually going to be going through the pricing and building solution quotes and proposals for an organization. Really understanding the tiers, the modularity, and the structure of Workforce Go HCM and how to position each one of those areas from a pricing standpoint there. And then post that, going into next week, we'll actually be getting into the solution overviews. So we'll be going through that pre-hire to requirement. We'll be showing you how to perform overviews of each one of the modules and components there, and even building out demonstration scripts for you to start utilizing moving forward as you get your own demonstration environments. But pulling that back to our discovery, our needs requirement today, again, probably the most important steps through our entire review. Any questions or any items that we have on that that we may have there today? Perfect. All right. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for all of their time and going through these training sessions with them. We truly appreciate it. We try to keep these to short segments to not take too much time out of your day. We're going to continue forward from there. If you have any feedback on things we can be changing or doing better, or information that we can provide in a better fashion for you, please feel free to share that with myself or Tanya or any one of our team members, and we're happy to do so to make this very productive for all of us. But thank you all again for all of your time this morning. Hope the rest of your day goes well, and I'll look forward to speaking to everyone on Thursday. Talk soon.